Does it? I'm here in a private ranch in Starr County, Texas. We're going to go check out some very rare cactus species, including a magnificent clump of the endangered star cactus, Astrophyta mysterious. We'll see some peyote, and we'll see some remarkable habitat that's disappearing from this region and may be gone by mid-century, if not sooner. A lot of development, you know, ongoing patterns of drought, heat, etc. So let's go check it out. Got nothing like the thorn scrub after a rain. Look at that. Look at that beautiful black brush. Multiple stems, easily confused with Texas ebony, but doesn't get as big. And the leaflets have a tiny acuminate point that sometimes is almost not noticeable. But lots of yotes coming up, thriving here. God, the ground is still moist too. This soil, so it's so special. It's just, oh, this clay. Look at those little guys. What a special habitat. What a special place. God, we need a dam. We need a big preserve with a nice visitor center. You know, we're going to try to do that. Set up a nonprofit, get your visitor center, and interpret a bunch of interpretive signs, labels for the plants. You have a nice little bookshop there. All be monitored. You know, poachers will be flogged. But just an increasingly endangered ecosystem and underappreciated too, and so unique. Only place in the United States that this occurs is in South Texas. Beautiful yoke, beautiful, so plump and juicy with that chalky blue, that wax, epicuticular wax. Beautiful Coryphantha macromeris as well, with those pink flowers when they go off. Look at how prominent those tubercles are. You see this growing in shade a lot, but in cultivation it can do fine with a lot more sun. You know, as long as you can water once in a while during the hottest balls summer they get down here. Nice little clump of yotes. Can't tell if it's one that got cut and then re-sprouted or if it's just a bunch of seedlings. You can hear the grackles going nuts. Look at it, it's not a shred of buffalo grass to be seen anywhere. There's a mesquite. You can see how dwarfed it's growing because of how hot it is in the summer. Beautiful yucca too. But see, this soil is what makes everything. This clay soil, all right, calcareous based soil, weathered out of limestone. Nice little clump of yotes right there, hiding in the shade. No invasives, almost just bare ground everywhere, but you've got this this lichen and cyanobacteria, and oh, there's even that weird liverwort here. Yeah, there's that liverwort. You see that? This fucking weird. No one knows what species it is, but it's got a beautiful kind of bluish green, almost turquoise luster to it. And you won't even notice it unless it's rained recently. But it grows sympatric with the peyote at a few spots down here in beautiful Starr County. What's that, a nice Castilla over there? Look at that. See, pardon the barking. We got a posse of chihuahuas here. Ancestral cactus, there we go, which of course forms those little tubers, those little potatoes about 6 inches below the stem. And those tubers are what enable these guys to grow without any shade, just out open, exposed. Ancestral cactus and thelocactus are two of the most sturdy, tough cacti, low-growing cactus species that we get down here in the Rio Grande Valley. Hey, I didn't do nothing to you. Relax, buddy. See those curved hooks on those curved fish hooks on the distal ends of the spines, though? And then kind of like golden radial spines. That's ancestral cactus. I like the flowers when they go off, too. A lot of people don't think they're too nice. I think they're pretty. I think they're bangers. But look at that. No buffalo grass. Yeah, there's a little bit over there. Look at this hibiscus marchianus. Beautiful red flowers when it goes off. All right, a true hibiscus, a desert hibiscus, they top out at like 3 or 4 feet. See, they're growing in the shade here. In cultivation, they need full sun. And then growing beneath another shrub that looks like so many of the other shrubs down here, so many of the plants, they all do this fascicle thing. See that? Leaf fascicles, no petioles. This is Schaefferia cuneifolia. Celestraceae is the family. Looks like so many, it looks like 3 or 4 other unrelated plants here. But growing beneath that, got this magnificent clump of peyote. Look at the beautiful color on that. And look at how important that calcareous mud is too. Half covered in lichens. All that black stuff is lichens. That's all a living soil crust. Got a nice guayacán right here. Zygophyllaceae is the family on that one, the creosote family. Guaiacum These can get upwards. I've seen them, you know, 14 feet tall in Nuevo Leon. Old growth, but they grow very slow. Look, there's the nostoc. It's still wet. It hasn't turned into that black crust yet. A cyanobacterial film, a photosynthetic bacteria. Looks like someone blew their nose. Look at this massive clump of Coryphantha macromeris. It's got a 2.5 foot spread. A 2.5 foot spread. And illustrious pink flowers when it blooms. Look, such a privilege to be in its habitat. Look at that. There's Coryphantha, open and exposed, sun exposed. Just started some of these from seed. We got to grow more of this. We got to get more people out here. We got to get people preserving this, learning about it, caring about it. Then we're going to open up the visitor center when we start our nonprofit. We're going to have wonderful bathrooms in there, okay? Tile bathrooms, some nice paintings and stuff on a wall. They'll be nailed down so they can't be stolen, okay? Because you just got that Chicago mentality. You know, they'll steal anything that's not nailed down. But we're going to have a wonderful visitor center with the excellent bathroom in there, and interpretive signs and trails and an informational kiosk. Oh, God, it's like getting recharged coming out here. Puts me in a good mood. Now I can go sit in a fucking parking lot in a strip mall for, 20 minutes if I need to. It won't bum me out at all. This is, I come out here so I can actually, exist in the world without wanting to choke myself. Look at that. Multiple stems on the blackbrush, right? Unlike the ebony too, which is just a single trunk off of it. Multiple stems on the blackbrush. But they do look alike. But look at all the lichen that's already growing on this. These cool lichen communities. I mean, this is nothing. I've seen it just covered in beards of lichen. There we go. Ziziphus obtusifolius. Now it's Sarcomphalus. Because I guess, I don't know what the hell they changed. Ziziphus is an old world genus too. And, I guess not surprising that the, Atlantic Ocean is a big, barrier to speciation, of course. Or I guess the Pacific, because I think the old world genus is in Asia. But regardless, they changed the New World ones to Sarcomphalus or Sarcombatus or something. I don't know. Sarco something. All you got to know is it's in the buckthorn family, Rhamnaceae. And if you look at those stems, you can see those, very subtle ridges and striations along those photosynthetic stems. The leaves are tiny, of course. This thing has been adapted to grow in the desert, in the brutal heat here. Just go dormant. Very, very wonderful plant. Spiny as hell, but when it goes off, very important for the pollinators. And then here we go with probably the largest clump of star cactus. And I think these are all individuals because they, star cactus doesn't pup. Of course, Astrophytum mysterious doesn't pup. But you could see right there what's going on. I mean, this thing is massive. I was here 3 years ago. This is a private ranch, and this thing was not even half this size. But it does appear some of the individuals have died. But you could see there's more than enough recruitment. The landowner keeps these little grates over them because the conejos, the rabbits, were going to town on them for a while. But it appears the bitter-tasting alkaloids in that cactus have been more than enough to keep the rabbits away. But just Christ, look at it. Oh. And this landowner was really nice, too. She let us get some seeds a few years ago. And so now there's ample stock plants growing by a friend of mine for restoration purposes. To plant them back in the ground, because this species needs conservation more than any other right now in the region, because it doesn't have that big taproot that peyote has, so they're very susceptible to drought, surprisingly susceptible to drought. Very curious though, because you'll frequently see these growing open and exposed, just sunk into the ground, and these rolling hills of pebbles that were probably deposited by the river, I don't know, 1 million years ago, maybe 15,000 years ago, 500, who the hell knows? But they're rounded, so they spend time in water, those little pebbles. But you'll see that's where this thing grows. You go to some of these preserves, you just see it growing flat on these undulating hills. God damn, look at it. Look, I love this plant. What a marvelous species. Way more in cultivation than there are in the wild. And the Japanese are doing some incredible breeding. The Japanese and the Thai are doing some incredible breeding with this. All right? Because, every once in a while you grow 1,000 seeds. Some of the seedlings, some of the individuals will have those trichomes accentuated. They'll have more of those little white speckled dots, which are just trichomes, than the others. And so then you take those, you selectively breed those two together. You get recessive alleles, dominant alleles, those are just copies of a gene. You're basically pulling out those recessive alleles. You get 2 copies of recessive alleles. Now you're homozygous, all right? Instead, if you got recessive and dominant, you're heterozygous, the dominant's going to overtake. You got 2 copies of those recessive alleles, now you're homozygous for the recessive trait, and that'll bring out those weird, just incredibly bizarre patterns on that flattened stem. Holy hell, I didn't even realize I'm standing on top of a seedling. Ample recruitment here. And again, this soil is so important to the recruitment of these plants. You see that? Behaves totally differently in a pot, but you can see it's like this sandy loam. It's sandy loam and clay. And it rained here 3 days ago, but it's still wet. It holds on to moisture. So it's a great seed bed for these plants. You try to put it in a pot, of course, soil behaves totally different in a pot versus in the ground, where it's got this massive expanse. Water can move all through it. But in a pot, you know, you got less of a volume of soil. It's totally different. But obviously, they're doing very well here. You could see seedlings popping up everywhere. There's a nice little yote, too. See that? You see the nice little yote over there? Look at it. Look, that chihuahua was just standing on top of the mountain of astrophytum. You ever seen that before? I bet you never seen a chihuahua stand on top of a mountain of a rare and beautiful cactus. And being that these are dioecious, they're not self-fertile. You need 2 individuals for cross-pollination. Yeah, obviously, with this many individuals growing here, you know, you get a good rain here. You know, they bloom roughly in March. You're gonna get a lot of cross-pollination, a lot of fruit, a lot of seed. What blows my mind though is, you know, anyone in the area could do this. You get a couple plants, buy them seed grown, stick them in the ground. You could start breeding them. You get a seed stock. You're basically doing rare plant conservation in your damn yard. Get rid of your lawn, start planting this stuff. This is the habitat we're losing. This is what we need. Okay, you know, and I just got some clarification as to why this is growing here in the shade, because you rarely ever see astrophytum growing in the shade of a tree like this. These were actually moved by the landowner who purchased the ranch, you know, sometime, I don't know, 20 years ago in the 2000s, and they brought 2 plants, 2 individuals from the barren plains where they grow, which are a little bit east out of here, you know, still on ranch property, and planted them here, and it's just thrived. It's taken off. So that's kind of new. That's new to me. I mean, this all was initially 2 plants that she planted, and now you can see what it's turned into. You've got all the rest is just, you know, natural seedling recruitment. Mind blowing. Look at it. How do those seeds get over there? Astrophytum seeds are very large for a cactus seed. So they got a lot of that juicy endosperm in there to feed the developing seedlings. All right, and they grow fast as hell too. I mean, it's wild. I mean, you can get a plant that's the size of a grapefruit in 3 years from seed, maybe less. Less if you graft them.